Hello and welcome back to Mastering Flat Design. In this lesson we're going to get started on the navigation bar for our design, and I want to start by taking both of our text fields here and I'm going to nudge them all up to the very top until it's just touching the top of the stage there. And I'm going to hold on to Shift and hit the down arrow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times to nudge it down 50 pixels. And then we want the top of our navigation bar to be about 150 pixels from the top. So I'm going to create a new guide here. It's going to be a horizontal guide, and I'm going to position it at 150 pixels. Click on OK, and there we go. So that's going to be the top of our navigation bar. Now I want our navigation bar to be about 70 pixels tall, so the bottom of it is going to be at 220 pixels. So we're going to create a new guide at 220. And there we go. So then I'm going to use the rectangle tool for the foreground color. I'm going to click here in the color selector and I'm going to give this a foreground color of CD, CD, CD. And then for the stroke, I'm just going to turn that off. So we don't have a stroke here. And then over here on the far left edge of the stage, at the top edge of the guides that we dragged out for our navigation bar, I'm going to click and drag all the way to the right and all the way down to that next guide so that it's 70 pixels tall and the entire width of the stage. V to switch to the move tool. I'm going to turn off the guides for a moment by hitting Command H or Control H if you're using a PC. And there's the background for our navigation bar. Now we have a few elements we're going to place on the navigation bar. We're going to have a home button, about, services, blog, and contact. So let's turn our guides back on, Command H again, or Control H if you're using a PC. I'm going to hit T to switch to the text tool. And you'll notice if I hover over this rectangle that's serving as the background for our nav, we're getting a cursor with this dotted circle around it. If I were to click now, then it would add the text to that path, and I don't want to do that. I want to add it to a new layer above this. So I'm going to hold on to Shift, and you'll notice our cursor goes back to the regular text insertion cursor. And then I'll click. And that'll create a new layer where we can enter in our text. So I'm going to enter in home in all capital letters. And you'll notice I'm using, if we hit enter here, you'll notice I'm using the Centany font here. We're using the regular version of it, not the bold version. And we're going to set it to 18 point. Also, I'm going to change the font color to white. And we're going to put a bright colored background behind it. So before we do that, I want to hit V to switch to the move tool. I'm going to grab the rectangle layer and the home layer, and I want to center that home text vertically. So I'm going to click up here with the move tool selected. I'm going to click up here to center the text vertically with the nav bar, and there we go. So then, just so we can keep things clean, I'm going to grab this rectangle layer, double click on the name and rename it, and we'll call this nav BG for nav background. And then just above that layer, we're going to create a background for the home button. And we're going to do that using the rectangle tool. So with the rectangle tool selected, I'm going to click on the fill color here. I'm going to click on the color selector, and I'm going to enter in a value of F26C4E. And that'll give us kind of a bright orange color. And that actually changed the background color of our nav bar, which is not what I wanted. Command Z to undo that. Before we do that, let's create a new layer above that nav BG, and then let's change those attributes. Now that that layer is no longer selected, again, it's F26C4E, and then we'll close our fill color, and then I'm just going to click and drag down and to the right. So what I want to do here is I want to have 40 pixels of padding on the left and on the right of the home text. So I'm going to hit V to switch to the move tool, and I'm going to select the home layer. And one way that we can select that layer is we can simply right click on the home text and then click on the name of the layer, which is home, and that will select the layer for us. And then we can nudge our text around using the arrow keys. So I'm going to nudge this all the way to the left edge there, and then holding on to Shift, I'm going to hit the right arrow key 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Then I'm going to select the rectangle layer by right-clicking on it and clicking on the name of it, which is Rectangle 1. Command T or Control T if you're using a PC to transform it. And I'm going to click and drag in the right edge, and you can see that it's giving us a nice little pop-up hint telling us what the width is. So I'm going to drag this all the way into the right edge of the home text, and that's a width of 90 pixels. So I'm just going to add 40 to that to give us a width of 130 pixels. So we'll drag that up until it says 130 and release. And I think I'll let go and it jumped back to 129. Let's drag that out again to 130 and release. And there we go. Then hit enter on your numeric keypad to apply those changes. And there's our button. So now we're going to do the same thing for the rest of our buttons, but we're going to make it a little quicker. First of all, I'm going to rename this rectangle layer that's the background for our home button. We'll double click on that name and call it Home BG. Then I'm going to grab both of those layers, click on one, hold on to Shift, and click on the other one so that both of them are selected. And then I'm going to hit Command J or Control J if you're using a PC to duplicate those layers. And then we're going to nudge those layers to the right. And I want to nudge it up right against the edge of that first home button. And then we'll change the attributes here. So we're going to double click on the thumbnail section of the home copy layer where that giant T is, and that will select the text. And we're just going to change that text to about. Also, we're going to double click in the preview area for the background of that button. And that'll give us a color selector, and we're going to change that color to a bright purple color, CF6BAA. Click on OK, and there we go. So now we just need to make sure that we have the same amount of padding on the left and right. So I'm going to select the About layer, nudge that over to the left until the left edge of the A is touching the left edge of the background, and then Shift right arrow 4 times to nudge it over 40 pixels. And then again, we'll right click on the background, select it, Command T to transform it, or Control T on a PC. We'll bring it down to the right edge of the T, which is 96, and then we need to increase that by 40, so we'll bring it up to 136. And it's easier to fine-tune those amounts if you zoom in a little bit. So we could zoom in and then transform it, and that'll make it a little easier to get to that 136. Like so. All right, so then we need to rename that layer About BG, and then we're just going to do that a few more times until we get all of our buttons. So our next one is the Services button. Let's grab both of those layers, Command J or Control J on a PC to duplicate them. We'll double click on the About BG copy layer name and change that to Services BG. And then let's grab both of those layers and drag them over. Just nudge it up till it's right up against the button next to it. We'll change the text to Services, all capital letters there. And then we'll double click in the preview area or the thumbnail area for the Services background layer to give us our color selector. And the color we're going to use here is F2C24D. And then we'll grab the Services text layer, nudge it over to the left edge, and then Shift right arrow 4 times to nudge it over 40 pixels. And then we'll resize the background like we've done before. So nudge it up right to the edge. 121 plus 40 is 161, so we'll drag it out to 161 pixels of width. And there we go. Okay, so let's duplicate that. Rename the background layer there, and then this one is going to be the blog button, so we'll call this blog BG. We'll change the text to blog, and then using the move tool, we'll grab both of those layers and move them over. And then we're going to, oops, didn't mean to scroll down there. Then we're going to change the background color. The background color for the blog is going to be A3D178, a bright green color. And then we'll grab the blog text, nudge it all the way over to the left edge, and then Shift right arrow 4 times. Then we'll resize the background, just like we've done before. 84 plus 40 is 124, so we'll drag that out to 124. That way we have the same amount of padding on the left and right edge of all of our buttons. Then we have one more button, which is the contact button. So we'll grab both of these blog layers, duplicate them, rename the background to Contact BG. We'll change the text for the text layer to Contact, and then grab both layers, drag them over, We're going to recolor the contact background, and the color we're going to use for that is 78CC D0. And then we'll grab the contact text, move it over to the left edge, and then nudge it over 1, 2, 3, 40 pixels. And then once again, resize the background to 157. And there we go. So Command 1 to zoom out to 100%. Everything looks pretty good. Command H to turn off our guides. And there we go. So in the next video, I'm going to create some dividers for our navigation to divide up each of these buttons, and we'll move on from there. So let's save our file as flatdesign03.psd, and we'll move on to the next video. Thank you for watching.